Doodle Chats.
Hello, welcome to Doodle Chats. I'm here with the absolutely amazing and fabulous Emma, and we're going to be talking today about our creativity and about mental health, because it's Creativity and Wellbeing Week, and it also happens to be Mental Health Awareness Week on the same week, which is fabulous. Emma, do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Emma. I'm an artist and an art teacher. I am super keen on mindful techniques, getting people involved in collaborative work, and really trying to encourage people to create without anxiety and to allow that to be therapeutic. So I'm so happy to be involved in one of your interviews. Yay! Or doodle chats, sorry, not an interview, doodle chat. Delighted to be part of it.
Much less formal than a normal interview.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a job interview, is it? I didn't need to, I put the lippy on, but you know.
Better than I did this morning. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip the cameras around so that you guys can see what we're drawing while we're chatting. Okay? Cool. So what was your creative muse, I guess?
Are we starting drawing? Have we started?
Yeah.
Okay, so oh gosh, creative muse. I mean, I think people who know my art joke about how there's a lot of bottoms and trees. So that's natural things. I've done a lot of life drawing, I guess, through university and even in the sixth form and so on. And then I teach life drawing, so I see a lot of naked people. But also, I mean, I guess probably from a really early age, creativity was something that was just so welcome in our household. You know, my dad would be painting every single holiday as children. Would start with us getting a new sketchbook and some drawing materials, and we had lots of drawing games, you know, lots of fun things. And I think it just meant that art was always something that I considered to be playful and fun and a sort of a happy space.
Yeah, I get what you mean, because I think, like, in our family, we did a lot of kind of creative stuff during holidays, but it tended to be more things like baking or like painting the walls. We never did any kind of I suppose we did a lot of drama and kind of going to plays and things like that.
Yeah.
But we never sort of did like drawing games or anything like that kind of side of it.
We used to do Guess What It Is, and my dad's a really good artist, and he'd sort of start with a shape, and it didn't really matter what the shape was. We'd all be alongside trying to guess what it was, and he'd usually start with something a little bit obscure, and then we'd all be guessing the wrong thing, and he was really creative about trying to make it, you know, whatever it was. I'm now doodling a spoon into it now because that was like a really obvious thing to start with, but it would be sort of spoons and cats and bizarre things. And because I've got four sisters at different ages, so two of them would probably be playing this game with me at the same time, and it would just be something lovely we could just sort of fill lots of time with, and then, you know, he'd scribble our name down beside any things that we got right, and there was so much fun and playfulness. And I think that's one of the things I feel as an art teacher. You know, without any disrespect to sort of primary school art teachers at all, but I feel like you know, people have judged themselves at quite a young age in terms of whether they feel like they're creative or not, and they've judged themselves on stuff that doesn't actually really matter. You know, it's, can I draw this thing so it looks exactly like it? Can I do photorealism? Sort of seems to be the only thing that young people and older people care about in terms of whether they think they're an artist. And so I feel like I try to do a lot of persuading people that they are an artist because they can move materials around. They're an artist because of the way they might organise their clothes in their wardrobe, or all sorts of things. You know,
Absolutely.
It sort of doesn't have to have
Absolutely.
limitations, does it?
No, not at all. There are so many people who I come across when they find out what I do, kind of go, "Oh, I'm not creative. I'm not creative at all." And you sit there and go, "Yes, you are."
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and like quite a lot.
Out.
Yeah, and it's like quite a lot of the drawing workshops that I do. It's most of it, and most of the time, I spend persuading people that actually, you know, drawing can be fun. It can be exciting, and like you say, it doesn't have to look like that kind of photorealism, you know, perfect drawing of a horse or a cat or whatever. You know, actually, you are just making marks on the page.
Exactly. Well, one of the things that I find really interesting is quite often, I mean, I teach right up to sixth form, and often students, that's the point at which they'll stop doing art and go on and do a degree in something else, or move on and into employment and so on. And quite often I'll get emails from people, you know, years and years later, still calling me Miss Delpeche, of course, sort of saying, you know, oh, I picked up some paints at the weekend because I felt like painting, but I just didn't know what to do, and I felt like I've forgotten everything. And so much of the time I'm just reminding people to just play, just get back to remembering why you love, you know, why you love drawing, why you love doodling, why, you know, that feels like it's something really natural to do, because it should feel like something really natural to do, and non-judgmental. And as soon as you get back into that whole place of it being non-judgmental, you'll love it, and then you'll get back into practice, and then you'll kind of get closer to the stage where you feel like you're creating stuff that makes you pleased with the finished outcome as much as it is enjoyable to produce. But people have too many kind of ideas about, you know, it needs to look a certain way.
It's just about getting people to enjoy it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, I think people kind of lose that, and I'm not sure where that is. I'm not sure whether that is at school. I mean, a lot of people I talk to, it is kind of either a teacher or a parent who has said, you know, don't bother carrying on with your artwork.
And then so much of the time I'm there sort of saying, you know, have you been to a contemporary art gallery recently? Because if you go to a contemporary art gallery, you will see such a range. It just is not about if you know, you're only an artist if you can draw a bunch of apples that look super realistic and you've got the shading perfect. Like, that's just one element. That is one element of art. And art is so broad. And so often I absolutely love where someone has, you know, tried with, I give them often an activity where they draw their hand and it's opening in different positions. And I remember one student just kept erasing what they'd done. They just, you know, weren't happy with it. And by the end of the session, they just had the most stunning drawing that was kind of lots of these ghost hands overlapping each other. And to persuade him that it was absolutely stunning, you know, he kind of lit up a little bit. I think at first he wasn't sure if I was joking, but he kind of lit up a little bit because he was thinking, he was just busy thinking it's not perfect. And I was there saying, well, what is perfect? You know, if we're talking about art, you know, what you've created, it's, you know, what you think is perfect and what other people think is perfect is so different, you know, that just enjoy it. Just enjoy moving stuff around and making. I think he did a bit more after that because he recognised that it's okay to do things that aren't hyper-realistic and that aren't photorealistic, and to use your imagination and to just use that playfulness.
Yeah.
I think that's important for mental health. I mean, I think that's the key for me. If I'm struggling, if I'm you know, having a day where things are getting on top of me and so on, the one thing I want to do is kind of, you know, head to my art box and get materials out and start being playful and not have any kind of limitations on it or any kind of idea about what I want something to look like at the end.
And interestingly, when you talk to kind of providers of sort of mental health help or mental illness help, a lot of the things that they recommend are kind of more sort of things that you can do yourself, are sort of either creative or like get out and have a walk kind of thing, but they are the kind of two things that they talk about. And yet, you know, the funding for the more creative side of mental health help is awful. It's just hardly anything.
Which is such a shame, because statistically, I know I was doing, part of my master's was about looking at provisions, art provisions, mental health provisions in hospitals, and in fact my degree was about art for community and about doing collaborative work that really did kind of go into hospital art, and it ended with a commission to create work for a hospital. But you know, the statistics are there that suggest that, or that show that hospitals where there are art schemes, where there is art on display, and where there are opportunities to get involved in art, so with an art therapist perhaps and so on, or a creative provider, the discharge is much sooner, so that, you know, patients are being discharged much more quickly, and they require less analgesia, so less pain relief. And you're like, that's significant. That is significant. That is like, we're talking about this being actually, like, in terms of the physical, mental, emotional benefits, is, you know, it's all there. It's like, it works. You know, you get people creating, and they will start to feel better. So, you know, not just in terms of mental health, but in terms of physical health as well. So, I mean, obviously the two are completely interlinked, but I just feel like, oh my goodness, this is surely a really relatively easy way to help people, you know, out of hospital beds.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it just seems like no matter how much research there is, and there is a lot, like you say, there is a lot of research out there showing not just, you know, the actual benefit to people, you know, they need less analgesia, they need less pain relief, they need less time in hospital, but actually, like, you know, the economic benefits, this will save you money in the long run. You don't have to spend on medication or an extra couple of nights in bed. And it just doesn't seem to be acted on.
Yeah, totally.
It's, you know, and there are, don't get me wrong, there are like quite a few sort of initiatives going on, but a lot of it seems to be kind of funded from arts backgrounds, so funded from like Arts Council or, you know, something like that, whereas, you know, there hardly seems to be any funding actually coming from like CCGs or anything like that.
Yeah, I know it's a very bizarre thing. I get, and it, you know, I guess in schools as well, it's difficult because of, you know, governments making it feel like anything that's creative is sort of on a bottom rung, when actually at the same time you think, you know, mental health is really, really an issue, and people needing to find ways to self-soothe and needing to find ways that they can become part of collaborations and do things that are creative and therefore kind of good for the, I mean, you know, I don't know whether I hesitate to use the word soul, but I think it means whatever people want it to mean, really. Good for just your being, you know, to be able to draw and communicate visually, or to perform, or to write, do sort of creative writing, whatever. All of these things are challenged by I guess an education system that's based on everyone needs to be really good at science and maths and so on, and those are the important things.
You must feel that as an art teacher, actually, that it's kind of not sidelined necessarily, but do you feel like you have to kind of fight for that quite a lot?
I mean, I don't in the school I teach in. I'm lucky in that the school I teach in, I definitely don't feel that, and I think that's probably part of the fact that I teach in the private sector and in a school where there's a lot of support for the arts. But I have taught for years in state schools, and really, you know, I've got a lot of friends who still teach in state schools, and I worked for years in them, and really felt like it was a bit of a battle at times. I think it's got worse. I think it's harder, and budgets are even tighter for, you know, art departments and other creative departments. And I think that's really sad. I think it's something that, you know, it's not just that, you know, if we draw we feel better. I don't think it's as simple as that, although I think it can be depending on the person. But I think it's just such a useful thing, and industry is wanting people who are creative. You know, business has become one of the kind of top 10, certainly up at the top of the top 10 things, because you know, jobs are not predictable now, and you know, what is a you know, well-paid job at the moment may become nothing in the future, and people need to be adaptable, and creativity is adaptability. It's, you know.
No,
and
absolutely.
Yeah.
I just think,
so I don't think I have to feel it as much as my friends do. How about you in your in the retreat? You know, how do you kind of feel that people engage and
it's really interesting. So obviously the first kind of people that come along and that get involved with the retreat are those that are inherently creative anyway.
Yeah.
That feel they're creative. And then kind of slowly you start getting people coming who aren't creative and have been told that they're not creative, and then find that actually it's not as strict, I suppose, as they initially thought. And find something that they enjoy doing. And we've, you know, I've been quite lucky in the fact that I've got a great community where the studio is in Southborough. And people have just been very accepting and amazing at the retreat being there. But in terms of kind of getting into like schools and places like that, it has been tough, you know, trying to, even if I'm offering my time for free. It's like, as I will find the funding for this, you know. You don't have to do anything, you just have to let me come into the school. And I get it, because, you know, teachers don't have time to think about that kind of thing anymore. You know, it's kind of it is the last thing on their list as such, and so I kind of understand it. But at the same time, I kind of want to grab them all and go, no! Look at what you're missing out on. Look at what your students are missing out on. So I find they can be quite insular with things like that. But then I have, you know, I've started working with an amazing local group of scouts who have just been absolutely fantastic, and they really recognise the need for that creativity and collaboration. You know, you were talking about kind of collaboration, community arts for their scouts. Which is great that they kind of already come with that sort of ethos.
Definitely.
It's lovely to have that. So that's been really nice, kind of being part of that community.
And people really like, I think it's one of those lovely things where, you know, we would have on the masters that I was doing, we'd have making days, and I think the whole thing of doing something together, even if you're actually doing it separately, even if you're actually kind of working in your own space, but you're communicating together, you know, that can be really empowering, and it feels like, you know, you're doing something and other people are involved. I guess there's something about being acknowledged that's important in it, that, you know, even if you're not chatting or whatever, that whole thing of people being around, digitally or otherwise, you feel like, you know, you're not just doing something by yourself. And for a lot of people, doing creativity by themselves can be quite daunting. It's a real bonus that you've created this creative space that actually gives people permission and support, you know, so that if they are feeling anxious about doing a doodle or, you know, expressing themselves, then they can have that space and that togetherness.
Absolutely. And I think it is about that community. You know, I've seen a lot of kind of quotes and writings about the tribe and having a kind of a tribe around you, and that we don't have that kind of tribal village around us anymore, because everyone kind of lives further apart. And I guess, you know, there's a lot of ill of social media and a lot of talking ill of social media, but actually you know, particularly now when you look at kind of what's going on with lockdown and everything.
Yeah.
The massive benefits, one of the massive
Absolutely.
benefits is that collaboration and that community that you can still find.
And it can rescue people. I mean, it can literally rescue people.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it you know, a lot of people are sort of saying stuff about how they're, you know, just desperate to get back to their big groups and so on. And you think, well, actually, a lot of people don't have those big social groups. You know, and a lot of people actually really rely on the contact that they have with people digitally. So maybe it's sort of, again, a little bit of a reminder to you know, well, I don't know if it's a reminder, but if it's just, you know, it helps people to understand each other a little bit better, I guess. You know, that some people might see actually that quiz night, for example, that they've constructed with their family really is like a super important bit of the week that they really look forward to, and kind of realise how other people might, you know, spend a lot of time gaming or spend a lot of time with a group of people, you know, online. And I think that it's a lovely way to be creative as well. So, you know, I don't think it really matters what that creativity is, although it is lovely to be hands-on. You know, I do feel like for my own mental health, you know, I like reading and I like listening to audio books and so on, but I don't think there's anything that quite compares with, you know, having a piece of paper in front of me or a canvas in front of me or a bit of clay in front of me, and just, you know, I think when your hands can kind of do their own journey, I think that's really exciting. And also I like using materials where I know that they won't necessarily want to work with each other. Like I quite like using an oily surface and then using a watery surface, and where they'll split and kind of, I think they're called immiscible materials and so on. And so there's a little bit of a conversation with the work itself, you know, a little bit of kind of playfulness in terms of it can not quite answer back, but refuse to do what I sound like a mad lady, don't I?
Absolutely. Also doing something quite unexpected. So I love doing so my work recently has been really informed by the process. So I've been doing lots of mono printing with ink and kind of pressing it, and every time you press it, it just produces something completely different to how you want, and it's not that kind of neat, beautiful, perfect line. You know, sometimes it's really faint and vague, and then other times it's really blobby and kind of messy. And I love the fact that it's the process that then informs how the work looks at the end.
Exactly.
Love doing that. So what about your own sort of mental health? How do you think being creative, and whether that's kind of more the painting and drawing art or whether that's other forms of being creative, how do you think that's kind of informed your own mental health?
I mean, I think I definitely know that, as I said earlier, that if I feel stressed, if I feel unhappy, if I'm sad about something, you know, if things are kind of getting on top of me, I know one of the first things I want to do is to kind of go and just go and you know, and if I feel frustrated with things, so, you know, I spent, and think like a lot of other people, years being frustrated with austerity and frustrated with the pain it has been causing people, and you know, I'm not helping as such by drawing or by making, but I felt I needed to respond, and I was doing really visceral kind of throwing ceramics around and then creating artwork out of all of the broken pieces, and it was so obviously necessary for me as a sort of way of, and I don't think it was processing. I'm saying, you know, processing stuff that's going on around me, because I don't think you can process stuff that is, you know, so distressing. So, you know, I did Crisis at Christmas a couple of years ago, and was chatting to, I was sort of an arts coordinator, and was chatting to the people on the arts table, and they literally, I just came away from that week feeling like there is zero difference between me and any of those homeless people. The only difference was that I've got the safety net. You know, that if things kind of became really challenging for me, really difficult, there's a very good chance that someone else would pick up the slack and look after me. And I think actually that's what, you know, society should be doing. So when I get really just frustrated with you know, the situation for other people, I do need to make. I just absolutely need to make, because otherwise I think I'd just end up living like a hermit and not being able to read the news and not being able to kind of engage. And so I feel like it is, you know, it's almost like the you know, Picasso's blue and red periods and so on. You can go like, oh yeah, Emma was very angry when she made that series of work. They're very vicious. she was struggling with something, and you know, one of the sculptures that I made is called Bourbon, Argos and the Sea. And Bourbon Argos is a vessel that Médecins Sans Frontières were using to rescue people who were in the Mediterranean, when obviously there was a lot of people trying to cross the Mediterranean to safety as refugees. And I just couldn't bear it. I just, you know, could not bear the fact that people were in this just desperate situation. And so was, you know, I had to make this sculpture because it needed to come out of my head. I needed to work with my hands and to kind of go, how is this happening? How is this happening? And so I think in terms of my mental health, I don't know where those thoughts would go if I wasn't transporting them into a piece. You know, and some good can come out of that in terms of the kind of the conversations, I guess, that I've had subsequently, and you know, the piece itself has been in an exhibition and was due to go into another exhibition. And you know, if and when it is sold, the proceeds will go to a charity called Empathy Action. And you know, it's like there can be some, you know, it's not necessarily just the making, but the making is so important. And I feel like without it, I'd be a lot more a stressed person, a lot more
kind of
an anxious person.
A release of those emotions. Yeah. No, I love that. I love the thought of your artwork as well being this kind of diary as to how you were feeling at the time and what was going on for you at the time. I love that idea.
You know, I made this sculpture, this was years ago, this was about 15 years ago now, and I made this sculpture and it was a face, and it was just kind of had all these strips taken out of it and tears through it and so on, and I was there thinking, this is just like a nightmare that's very visual, you know, it's very much on the surface, and I really enjoyed making it. And then my mum looked at it and kind of went, and I went, oh no, you don't like it. It's not really about whether I like it, but it's very much a self-portrait. And I went, what do you mean? She went, well, your son's keeping you up at night, so sleep to you is torture. And I was like, how do you know me better than I know myself? How is that okay? I think at the time when she said it, I was probably like, oh no. So, but you know, in my head I was like, no, she psychoanalyzed me, and I didn't realise I was literally doing like a self-portrait of how painful my nights were with this baby that was just, you know, waking me up every couple of hours. It's like, oh, rats. So yeah, I think
artwork betraying your thoughts.
Yes, exactly. Like, no, I'm fine. And then they look at my art and go, you're not fine, Emma. You're really not fine.
Oh, I love that idea. Oh, how are you doing with your doodle?
Oh, you know what? I can't see your doodle because I'm looking at my doodle. It's a thing. It's evolving.
It's evolving. Yeah, mine is.
I'm enjoying it. I want to see yours, but it's covered by my phone holder thing. I'm gonna have to see it when we're done. You have to tell me when we're done.
Yes,
and then I'll,
definitely.
Then I'll just have a look at yours.
Have you found it quite cathartic, the fact that you're drawing as you're talking?
Yeah, you know what? It's really funny because I do enjoy drawing and talking if I'm chatting to a friend. It's just that sometimes I realise I'm just talking and not drawing, and I always use that as an example to the students when I'm doing a demonstration. I'm like, look, I can either do a good demonstration, but I will go for long periods of time, or I'll be like super. I just did my biro and my ink. I'll be super articulate, but doing a really rubbish example. It's like, oh, so that's not, you know, do as I say, not as I do, guys. So there's definitely, yeah, I think I don't do drawing, apart from when I'm doing examples for the students, I don't do drawing and chatting too much, but it's fun. It's been really good fun.
Good.
More often.
Oh, Emma, thank you so much for joining and for chatting to us about kind of creativity and mental health.
No,
and I hope you have a very good week.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Now, take care.
Thank you.